How radio scooped the newspapers. The Wireless Age, December 1922. All was merry and serene in the broadcasting studio of WSB, operated by the Atlanta Journal, a daily newspaper of that Georgian city. Entertainers had come and sung their songs into the microphone, and the usual audience in many states had listened throughout the evening program and were preparing to turn off their instruments for the night. But suddenly the song they were hearing was stopped abruptly. All wondered what had happened. And then a rather excited voice was heard through the air. Atlanta is threatened with its most disastrous fire. The whole city seems to be in flames. There was a long pause of 2 seconds, during which the listeners heard only the crackling of the static in the air. It seemed an ominous silence. Instead of preparing to turn off their instruments and call it a night, all thoughts of sleep fled from their minds, and they even roused out of bed other members of the family who had become sleepy earlier in the night and were now in the land of Nod. And not only were thousands of family groups eagerly listening in for the next bulletin which was to come, but in distant cities, newspaper editors of other periodicals were being given their first realization that radio was scooping the world on the biggest news story that had come out of the South for many months. If in the newspaper offices of these distant cities there was no receiving apparatus, then it so happened in almost every instance that a private station or a station owned by a club in that city eagerly telephoned a flash about the fire to the newspaper. No word had come from the regular press associations or their correspondents. The Morse wires were as silent as the well-known cemetery at midnight. And all thoughts turned toward the radio room, which is so rapidly becoming a vital part of the daily newspaper. And then the voice went on. "The fire is sweeping through the central part of the city's business section. Our studio is only 2 blocks away, but we do not feel that the Journal building is threatened, and we will endeavor to carry through the radio program." And then, wonder upon wonder, the listeners heard the strains of an orchestra. It made them gasp in astonishment. Or perhaps it was a gasp of admiration for the intrepid little group that they could picture excitedly trying to carry on in a broadcasting studio near the heart of the burning city, with the light of the licking flames coming through the windows and playing upon the plush-covered walls. The orchestra number stopped, and the voice went on. "The flames are bright and light up the studio like sunshine. The heat from the flames that now rise 100 feet above the Journal building disturbs performers in the studio here. The flames are spreading, and the streets are filled with people." Finally, at 12:30 o'clock in the morning, like the words of a radio operator on a burning ship at sea, the voice said, "We must sign off. The whole city is fighting the fire. The heat is so great that we can operate no longer." Of course, the reaction from the daring enterprise of the Journal was great. The next morning, in cities throughout the United States, the front pages of newspapers were loud in their praise of the little band of persons at the Atlanta studio, who, while the city blazed fiercely under them, figuratively outlined a new path for radio to travel, pointing a way that must be followed in the future, showed the press of the country that even in the matter of disseminating big news events, while radio never can take the place of a newspaper, still it will be a power to be reckoned with, a power to be cooperated with, a power that will be constructive and for the general good of the people. Among the newspapers that used the radio bulletins were the Philadelphia Inquirer and the Kansas City Star, which shows the wide range of reception. The paper was complimented by Chief William Cody of the Atlanta Fire Department, who said that the department was genuinely indebted to the paper for its radiophone service, and that he was now strongly advocating that every man in the department equip his home with a receiving set in anticipation of similar emergencies in the future. He said that the Voice of the South, as he called the radio, had actually helped fight the $1 million fire that menaced the entire city, and almost made good its threat. A number of firemen off duty and at home heard the first announcement of the fire through their radio sets, and they immediately deserted their headphones and hurried to help their fellow smoke eaters to fight the flames. Radio has been used to report news events before, but probably this is the first time that it was called into action to tell the world about what is known in newspaper circles as a spot news story. That is, a story that breaks suddenly, without any advance notice. The feat of the Atlanta Journal will live long in the history of radio. Of that there is no doubt. It was a genuine contribution to the progress of broadcasting, which is going ahead at such tremendous speed that its complexion seems to change every 15 minutes.